What's going on, FA Nation? Jonathan Impemba here with Howard Bender. Welcome to the Fantasy Storm NFL DFS podcast here for Week 8. Howard, another week in the books from last week. We had a good week. How are you looking forward to this one going?
I'm very much looking forward to this weekend as far as DFS goes, because if you look at the NFL schedule, there's a lot of good stuff off the board. Like we already lost, we had Tampa Bay against Baltimore.
Yep.
So we lose the Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette. We lost Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, even though he didn't do anything. But then you look through it here. Denver Jacksonville is the London game.
Yep.
And so that takes off the board Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne. It takes off if you wanted to use Sutton or Judy or even the Denver defense for that matter. All you Greg Dulcich truthers out there don't get that. But then let's even go further. You got Kansas City and the Chargers are on a bye week. Green Bay and Buffalo.
Yeah.
That's the Sunday night game. So all the Bills are off the board. And then Cincinnati and Cleveland is the Monday night game. So Jamar Chase and company. Well, Jamar Chase.
I was going to say, Jamar Chase is that anyway.
Joe Burrow and company. Yeah. Well, everybody wants it to be Tyler Boyd season, but for DFS purposes on the main slate, you're going to have to use something else. So there's a lot of great talent off the board, which, to be perfectly honest, I feel like we're at more of an advantage than the layman who just relies on a lineup optimizer or buys lineups from somebody else, because this is one of those weeks where you are going to have to dig deep. There are chalk games to invest in, but there's definitely, you got to dig for some value here.
I agree. Some of the obviously more stackable games that I think we're going to see on this slate: Miami, Detroit's at home off their bye. They're getting, or not off their bye, but they're at home getting 3.5 here, a 51.5 game total for them in that one. We obviously know that Tua returned last week. We have Arizona, Minnesota's a 48.5 game total. Las Vegas, New Orleans, 49.5 game total that I think people are going to be looking to key in on there as well.
Yeah, and those are the three games with the highest expected point total, and none of the other games are even close.
Right.
Like, that's the funny thing. You're looking at Pittsburgh and Philly. Philly's in a game that says 43. Dallas is in a game against the Bears, which is 42.5. I'm looking at 40, 44.5. Giants and Seahawks, 44.5.
Yeah. But that opened at 46.5.
The Seahawks were in a game that the point total wasn't 49 or over.
Right. That opened at 46.5, and it's down to 44.5. So it's dropping too.
I guess everybody's investing in that Giants defense for the weekend.
Yeah, or no DK Metcalf kind of impacting maybe that one a little bit.
Oh, poor Marquise Goodwin not getting any love. But, I mean, those three games right there, if you want to talk about cash game play, obviously Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert is going to be a guy. And then even Mike Gesicki, I think, is worthy of looking at, especially based off of 7 targets in back-to-back games. On the other side of that game, Miami's pass defense not strong.
Right.
So you've got Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown if he gets cleared, but he will. DeAndre Swift should be back, and TJ Hawkinson. So you've got guys who are in that game who cash game usable, obviously, because the ownership projections are going to put them all as being very highly owned.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how some of the roster builds are going to come into those games as well. My biggest issue, and we'll get to obviously the running backs, but just you hit on Detroit, you mentioned Swift. They are very cautious with DeAndre Swift. Even when he's practicing and cleared, whenever he's coming back from an injury, they don't give him like that full workload. They're very comfortable using Jamal Williams, very comfortable using Craig Reynolds back there. But the only time we get like a full snap share for DeAndre Swift, it seems like, is game 1. They're like ready to go. And he gets up with a minor injury, and he's feeling great. What was the last time? He practiced in full. They said they're going to get him involved, and he played like 25% of the offensive snaps. And we're all like, we got duped again by how they're using that. So running back will be interesting. Let's kick it off at quarterback, though, because we're missing a lot of those top guys, like you mentioned. Now, obviously, Jalen Hurts is going to be a very popular option, I think, this week for those looking to spend up. Generally, it's Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts is sort of filling in that Josh Allen role this week. Great matchup at home against Pittsburgh. They're off their bye week, so they're fresh at home. It's a 10.5 point spread here, which can obviously be a little bit worrisome, but with the rushing upside is going to be there. You can throw the football a little bit on this Pittsburgh defense. So spending up, you got Jalen Hurts, and then it's Tua. I think those are just the two chalk monsters of the quarterback position here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyler Murray and Kirk Cousins are going to warrant some ownership. I'm actually looking at probably over on DraftKings, aren't you?
I am, yes.
So, all right, so I'm looking over at FanDuel here as well. Like, Hurts is the most expensive guy, followed up by Murray and Cousins. and Tua actually fourth on that list at 7,700.
Yeah, Tua's fourth on DraftKings. Dak Prescott's actually ahead of him. Kyler Murray is second at 7,500. Listen, I like what DeAndre Hopkins coming back did for Kyler Murray, but that offense is still garbage, right? Like like it's great for DeAndre Hopkins. I really like DeAndre Hopkins this week. When we get to wide receiver, especially on DraftKings, his price is very reasonable. Very surprised he's not up over $8,000 after how he was with his debut performance there. But I can't trust Arizona's offense to be good enough. This is maybe another week where they can get Robbie Anderson involved. He didn't play too much, obviously, on the short week for him in that game, and maybe that helps expand some of the offense there for Arizona, but he just hasn't looked great. You have Minnesota at home. They're coming off of their bye week, so I know there's a high total here, but I just get a little bit worried about putting my eggs in the Kyler Murray basket.
Yeah, no, Hurts and Tua are going to be my lock-in cash game plays probably for building lineups there, and then working off of those two for possible GPP play as well. So like those are probably the other like the two most important quarterbacks that you need to know. So let's kind of move down further. I have no interest in Stafford. Carr, I have limited interest in. I think Carr is an intriguing guy, but it's tough, man. I mean, we haven't seen that ceiling from him in a while, and that's kind of what I want to see out of him. But maybe in Josh McDaniels' offense, he's just not that guy. Maybe he's cash viable and not really sitting with a lot of GPP upside.
Yeah, hard to trust a quarterback that has a running back that's run for 140, and 150 yards. Is Josh Jacobs going to be able to run against the Saints defense? Historically speaking, Saints run defense has been very strong. So is that going to hinder Josh Jacobs' performance this week at all? But you're right. Outside of Carr-Adams connection, there hasn't been going on in that passing offense. So I do worry a little bit about that as well. And that's because, and that kind of brings me to the state of this quarterback position. I don't know if there's that true value that we've seen in past weeks. Like, there are obviously guys down here that I think could be interesting. I think Marcus Mariota at $5,400 against Carolina could be appealing, kind of just sort of given the spot that they're in here. Howard, if Carolina wins this week and Las Vegas beats the New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers are the top seed in the NFC South as it would stand following week 8 with Tampa Bay's loss. So that is a brutal division. Could be playing for the top of the division. I think Mariota's mobility is something to covet a little bit in this type of matchup. And even though I've said it week in week, Arthur Smith's getting criticized about his play calling and lack of usage of his top guys. Maybe that opens it up a little bit more here this week with Kyle Pitts and Drake London getting more involved. So again, if we're looking at value, I mean, sure, Jared Goff will probably get a lot of Mariota. I think certainly fits the bill here a little bit as well.
But doesn't it bother you that Mariota throws the ball 10 times a game?
No, because like I just said, I think his mobility helps him a little bit there. Like, again, he had 24 fantasy points against San Francisco throwing 14 times, right? Like, this is a guy that will run for yardage. He'll run for touchdowns. I think both of those are fine. 31, 50, and 61 rushing yards the last 3 games. 17, 24, and just 12 fantasy points against Cincinnati. But like I said, I think in that Cincinnati matchup, I'm hopeful Arthur Smith is hearing a little bit more of the criticism, and maybe now that there's a reality that they could be a playoff team this year, this is a matchup against a Carolina team that I think that there's an opportunity for Mariota to be at a ceiling-ish level. So, at 5,400, if he gives us what he gave us against Seattle, 17, or Tampa Bay, 18, or San Francisco, 24, that is more than enough. And he's a guy that you don't have to stack, per se. You can kind of loan dog Mariota if you wanted to go there because of his...
Yeah, I get it. You know what? Even for GPP upside, I mean, yeah, I get it. You use him naked, and he pays off that salary, and it kind of helps you out a little bit. I don't think the guy has a decent ceiling. I would rather go lower and take Davis Mills in this matchup with Tennessee because I think that Tennessee runs heavy. I mean, we're going to have to see what happens with Ryan Tannehill, but I think Tennessee runs heavy with Derrick Henry the entire time. Houston's run defense is atrocious. They fall behind. It's going to put Davis Mills into a pass-heavy situation at 5,200 over on DraftKings. And where is he over on FanDuel? He's, look at that, 6,500.
My problem with Davis Mills is that we don't know the statuses here of Collins and Cooks, right? Those
Cooks we know, right? Cooks is fine. Collins is the guy who's probably not going to. I'm pretty sure that we know that Collins isn't playing.
Right, but Cooks had missed practice back-to-back days. Did he finally return? He was.
Yeah, I'm looking at him right now. I mean, there's no real recent update on him, but there's no injury tag on him either.
He had missed due to like personal reasons. So like I don't know if this is like a trade with Brandon Cooks. Let's see.
Well, then get yourself some Philip Dorsett.
Well, yeah, I mean we're gonna talk about that in a moment. I was already in on Dorsett anyways because he played 56% of the snaps last week after Collins went out. So that's why, yeah, receivers. Most recent update, I just type his name in there. Receivers coach Ben McDaniels makes vague statements on Brandon Cooks' availability. So I don't know what that means, right? Like something to at least watch going into Sunday is there is a potential, and obviously you don't have to lock in your lineups today, so you can have that news at your disposal come Sunday morning when you're making these lineups. But yeah, just be on the aware that Brandon Cooks could be on the way out there in Houston. So if he pops up on an inactive because they're working out trades, that certainly would not shock me there. So anyways, so yeah, again, not a lot of great value.
No, not a lot of great value.
So I'm not touching any of the New England guys against the Jets. I can't trust that. Andy Dalton was named the starter against Las Vegas, but I mean, how much are we trusting Andy Dalton these days to throw the football, right?
Well, I don't think you can't because they keep using Taysom Hill in these red zone packages.
Right.
Like, how many times do I have to sit there and try and invest in Saints for a DFS weekend just to watch Taysom Hill shove it up my ass 100 times?
Right.
Right. Zero interest. Zero. I have more interest in using Kenny Pickett for garbage time than I do for Andy Dalton in a competitive game.
Would you play Geno? Not Geno. Daniel Jones? Would you play either quarterback in that match?
I would play Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones gives you that rushing ability. And I think that's something that I think is highly underrated. I think that he's very confident with the short passing game right now. I think that Wan'Dale Robinson offers him a very nice out for the quick, short timing routes, and that builds his confidence, and it allows him to now have that confidence to take off and run. I would use Daniel Jones. I don't necessarily know if I want to use Geno Smith. I do like that Giants defense a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I'd rather use Sam Ellinger for the min price.
The last one I'll throw out to you is Jimmy G. 18 and 21 fantasy points the last 3 weeks. Against this matchup against the Rams, we know that Shanahan has destroyed the Rams basically over the last handful of seasons here. They add CMC, another week for him to get involved in the offense. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously, again, Jimmy is the kind of guy who I think now with CMC and Shanahan having CMC and having the, I don't know what if Debo's going to be around or he's going to be available, that does take a weapon away from Garoppolo. So if Jimmy, yes, he can dump off passes to McCaffrey, but if he doesn't have Debo, you've got Ayuk, you've got Kittle, but you do lose a certain passing element. I guess you know what it is. I look at Jimmy G and against the Rams, and I just don't know if we're looking at Jimmy G against the Rams popping off for like huge point totals.
Sure, that's fine. Let's go to running back position. You alluded to already, but Houston.
You don't even want to talk Sam Ellinger? That's so hurtful.
No, I have no interest. You alluded to Derrick Henry in this matchup against Houston. There was a tweet that went out the other day. The last 3 games that Derrick Henry has faced Houston. Now, he didn't face them last year because he was hurt, so we're going back now 2 and 3 seasons ago. The last 3 games, over 200 yards rushing in each of those 3 games. 2 of those games, he had 2 touchdowns as well. We obviously know as Derrick Henry, as the season warms up or goes further on to the months, Derrick Henry's numbers start to pick up. His second half numbers are ridiculous. Teams just don't want to tackle him anymore once we get into the fall and winter. Now, again, this is in Houston. It's in a dome. Weather's not going to be a problem here, but Derrick Henry is running over everybody, and you look at his numbers of late, 128, 102, 114 yards the last 3 weeks. He is going to be in every lineup. My lone worry, I guess, is just that this has a 40 game. So, I mean, I guess Henry is sort of blow up proof because they run the football if they go up enough. So, like, he'll still get the garbage time yardage. It's not like a receiver or a quarterback that you have to worry about. So, this is a week where if you're not playing Derrick Henry, you're probably very behind everybody if he does what people expect him to do.
Why don't you just talk about that King of the Beach tournament that I was in again, dude? Why don't you bring that up?
I wasn't bring it up. I wasn't going to bring it up. But honestly, like, the same scenario where it's like, this is a can't-miss, must-play Derrick Henry spot. Fading him If you're in like a 20 max, sure. Like, you're not going to have 100% exposure to Derrick Henry. If you're in a 3 max, maybe one of your 3 lineups, you don't play Derrick Henry. But like last week, Howard, on this podcast, I wish I made a compilation, right? What did I say the 3 running backs were going to be? Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, Kenneth Walker. Put it in the lineup. I said that's how you're building your lineups this week. RB1, RB2, RB3 last week in scoring. Those were the example lineup we built. I think we had all 3 of them in there, right? So like that this week is that level. It's like Josh Jacobs can't miss last week against Houston, 150 yards. Derrick Henry is a can't miss this week against Houston. Has to be in your lineup. Doesn't matter how the ownership's going to be. Injury, knock on wood, isn't going to happen, but like that's the only thing I think that is stopping Derrick Henry in this matchup against Houston.
I would concur. I think that's literally the only thing stopping him. To me, he's a lock play. You have to, and it sucks that he's 10 grand on FanDuel, but to me, for cash game play, you have to lock him in there. And for GPP tournaments, he's going to be really highly owned as well. So you're going to probably have to jump in on that action.
Yeah, I think Jacobs, what do you have, 38% rostership last week? So, which still felt a little low in a spot that he was the cover of every DFS piece across the industry, right? So very surprised he was only a 3rd owned in these contests there personally, and at a much better price than Henry is this week as well. You got to play Henry. If we're going down, what are your thoughts on sort of like that next running back for you?
That next running back for me after Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
Well, should be Saquon Barkley, right?
In theory, I think so.
In theory, yeah, I would say so. Barkley against Seattle, I think, is a great spot for him to be in. I'm not really into Jonathan Taylor all that much. I mean, there's a lot that we need to see as far as how this team goes. I mean, if they're gonna see, the thing about Ellinger is that he does have a rushing element. If you look at his college numbers, I mean, dude ran the ball a ton. So does that kind of spark this offense a little bit, and does that maybe take some of the notion of stacking the box and worrying about Taylor? Does that take it off the table for Washington? I'm not loving on Taylor too much. I like Dalvin Cook against Arizona. I think that's a fine play. Josh Jacobs being banged up doesn't really appeal to me all that much. Swift against Miami could, if he gets those touches.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, if I'm looking down at this list, it's like I'm going from Henry and Barkley confidently, and I'm probably not looking at another guy confidently until we get down towards like Kenneth Walker, Dameon Pierce, Tony Pollard.
So that's your other chalk guy this week. Is everybody's going to be playing Tony Pollard. More reports came out today. Unlikely Ezekiel Elliott suits up. This is what you've been waiting for, Tony Pollard truthers, right? Like, this is your shining star. This is your moment. Elliott played through the torn PCL last year, so you didn't really get that full workload from Tony Pollard. Well, if Elliott's not playing, he gets a Chicago Bears run defense, which is one of the worst in football. And Tony Pollard is going to be the guy getting 75% of the offensive snaps here. If he doesn't come through for you, you got to look at yourself in the mirror a little bit here and wonder what's going on. So, yes, $6,100 for on DraftKings for Tony Pollard. What's his FanDuel cost?
Pollard on FanDuel is $6,300.
I mean, you have to play him at $6,300 on FanDuel. That is, I mean, you got to play him on DraftKings as well, but the $6,300 FanDuel price is very appealing, kind of given the price of everything else that goes on over there. I agree with you on Kenneth Walker, and I think Alvin Kamara is still worth the look. Again, Dalton's thrown to him just a ton. 9 targets last game, 9 targets a game before that. We're getting Drew Brees level passing game involvement for Alvin Kamara here.
Yeah, we are, but I mean, has that resulted in any end zone dancing?
No, I mean, touchdowns aren't there, but 27, 18, and 17 fantasy points still the last 3 weeks.
Right, but I mean, is that what you're aiming for when you're paying up?
Well, so here's how I look at it, right? He's 7,100, so he's definitely in like the second tier of spend ups for running backs. Right. If he's not scoring and giving you 27, 18, and 17, if the touchdown luck does flip his way, then in a GPP, he's now giving you 30, 25 in that range. So I like him just for the fact that without scoring, he's giving you all of that production. If he scores, he's really putting you over the top. So that's how I'm looking at with Alvin Kamara, especially on DraftKings, full PPR.
Right.
You're getting all that points just in receptions. So, and we know how bad the Saints defense has been. So like they're giving up a lot of points, which means they have to constantly be chasing, and it's not taking Kamara away. Though it was super frustrating against Arizona last week. Red zone, they had Ingram in there. And I'm like, why is Ingram in the game here? Like,
and that's what I'm talking about. Once they get into the red zone, for whatever reason, like, I mean, I guess it's Pete Carmichael, the offensive coordinator, whatever. He's got his head up his ass because you run this great offense that takes you 80 yards down the field. You get to the 20, and all of a sudden you're like, now you're going to get all cute.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna run Mark Ingram. Now you're gonna run Taysom Hill packages. Now you're gonna have Andy Dalton throwing to Raheem Shaheem. I mean, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
Where's your bread and butter? And why aren't you using it when it matters the most? That's my biggest problem with the Saints, because I think I've tried to play around with a Saints stack like 3 times. Once last year, twice this year, and each time it's like you don't know where they're going inside the red zone. So it kind of unnerves me. Maybe Kamara's fine in like a cash game play,
sure,
because of all this pass catching work that he is getting on DraftKings. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking for a guy who's going to get into the end zone, I just can't predict New Orleans, and that's my problem.
Sure, that's totally fair. I'm just looking at receptions allowed. So here's an interesting thing. To the running back position this year, the Raiders are allowing the most receptions to running backs. So
interesting.
Take that for what you will as well.
I will. Well, I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at their DVOA is 23rd against running back pass plays, giving up an average of 8 targets per game to the running backs for an average of 55 yards.
Yep. So now you add in an elite pass catching running back like Alvin Kamara, and we'll see what happens. So again, I like Kamara there. $7,100 on DraftKings. Definitely the second tier, I guess, of pricing there. Pollard's great, as I mentioned. Pierce for sure. I think you can kind of go back and forth on him. He is just the Houston offense at this point. Kenneth Walker will be super popular. I think Miles Sanders, if you're not playing Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders is an interesting spot. Pittsburgh run defense is terrible. Sanders is actually scoring touchdowns this year. He's already got 4. He's been good. He's been not so good at times. That's kind of the if and go with Sanders. But if you're not playing Jalen Hurts in this game, Sanders is a GPP option. He does have a 30-point fantasy game on his ledger this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, I wouldn't even mind if I was thinking about doing an Eagles stack of using Hurts and Sanders together with like A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith or Dallas Goedert, and just kind of, because you look at the potential of the game script to be a heavy run in the second half if they're up big on Pittsburgh. And then that means that hopefully Hurts did some damage in the first half,
right,
and Miles Sanders picks up the mop-up work in the second.
Sure. Under 6K, you mentioned Mostert earlier. I love Mostert, and I wonder if he goes overlooked because everybody's playing the passing game. Everybody's playing Hill, Waddle, Tua, and you're not generally stacking the running back with that sort of game stack there. But recent targets for him last game, 4 catches, 5 targets. The rushing numbers have been fine. He found the end zone against the Jets. More touchdowns again. You'd like to see more touchdowns out of these guys, but it is a great spot against Detroit for him.
Yeah, he's in a fantastic spot against Detroit.
After that, I don't know, man. You were in on Brian Robinson last week. Again, not impressive from a yards per carry standpoint, but he got 20 carries. So volume is there, right?
Volume is there. That kind of, I guess I'm not as into him this week as I was last week, just the matchup against the Colts. But I do look further down. You got to give Deonta Foreman a look against Atlanta, especially if Chuba Hubbard's going to be out.
Yep. Already ruled out Chuba, so you got to go with Donta. I agree with you at 53. Didn't start last game, but Chuba got hurt. He came in 15 for 118. So certainly encouraging here. I don't know what to expect from Carroll. Like, nobody expected them to win that game. So, like, was that just them riding on this sort of, like, wave of momentum versus also running into a Tampa Bay team that is just completely out of it at this point now? But, at the very least, we got to think that they're going to be looking to run a lot with Foreman there as well. Let's see, where else would we go?
Does it hurt you to see Tom Brady struggling so much now?
No, because Tom Brady isn't struggling. The team around him is struggling. So I've been debating this. I've been debating this all day.
He's not overthrowing anybody at all.
No, he's not. Did you see them drop the pass Mike Evans dropped 2 nights ago, or 2 weeks ago rather, against Carolina?
A week ago. Yeah, I saw that. Absolutely. I'm talking about last night. I watched him overthrow at least 4 guys inside the red zone.
I don't know. I don't think all of that's been his fault. They also had the play where Ingram or Evans ran the wrong route, and Brady almost got picked because of it when they were in the end zone.
Take Tom Brady's nutsack out of your mouth.
I think
he was overthrowing. There's the timing is off with these guys.
Well, that I agree with. I agree there's some timing off there. He has the fastest pocket in the NFL, 2.1 seconds from snap to release. So still out there slinging it. Finalized his divorce today. Maybe now that's over with. He'll no longer have that weighing on his mind.
Let's talk wide receivers.
Yeah, I was gonna say no other value running backs for you, right? There's nothing out there. All right, wide receivers then. Top guys:
Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams,
Tyreek Hill.
All pale in comparison to Tyreek Hill.
Yep, I really like Tyreek Hill this week against Detroit. Listen, you can play Cooper Kupp. Like, as bad as the Rams have been, he's been great, and he had 29 fantasy points against San Francisco in that first meeting. So they just don't know how to cover Cooper Kupp there. If you want to, certainly. He may even go overlooked this week because you can't fit him. You can't put him in your lineup anywhere. So
9,600 on DraftKings. That's pretty crazy.
Yep, I agree with you there.
FanDuel's 93.
Yeah, very expensive. Again, I feel the same way about Jefferson. I think Jefferson's a great pivot play. He's just more expensive, obviously, so you have to spend up a little bit of money to get Jefferson, but target share, great spot, I think, for him against. I feel the same way about Adams with no Lattimore likely for the Saints here. If he's good to go, he's missed a couple practices with an illness. But like you mentioned, everybody's going to be in a Tyreek. A.J. Brown's going to be popular here. DeAndre Hopkins, for me, is a core play. $7,400 against Minnesota. They played him, I think it was 48% of his snaps came out of the slot in that game last week. So, if that's what their plan is for DeAndre Hopkins, I think that's great. It allows them to move him around in a lot of different formations and work for him to get open. And clearly, he's Kyler Murray's guy. He comes back in after missing 6 weeks. He gets 14 targets. So $7,400 for Hopkins. He's only going to go up from price from here.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you on Hopkins. I think they're going to continue to force feed targets his way. No doubt about it. I like A.J. Brown, obviously, against Pittsburgh. But yeah, I'll keep cruising down. A lot of questionable guys like that. I'm wondering how much we're gonna see people kind of pivot off of certain players because of their questionable status. I'm talking like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm talking about Jalen Waddle.
Yep, I agree with you. Yeah, Waddle I think is fine. They've been just kind of monitoring that shoulder problem, but he played last week. The St. Brown one, obviously, he's got to clear the concussion. It was concussion, right? That he's trying to clear. Yeah,
right, but he didn't have a concussion. They say.
Yeah,
he's shown no symptoms of concussion at all. Yet he hasn't been cleared by an independent neurologist yet, and he was in a "Can't Touch Me" jersey at practice.
Yeah, it was a Teddy Bridgewater thing, right? Didn't suffer a concussion. They still made him sit out a week. So we'll see what happens. Like you mentioned, scrolling down, Devonta Smith, good pivot off of A.J. Brown if you want to go there. We've had some pretty explosive weeks out of him. Adam Thielen is still a touchdown machine for this team. Touchdown last week. He's got 2 on the year already. Good numbers out of him in this spot if you think that game's going to go a little bit of back and forth. Bay's the number 1 target there in New Orleans against Las Vegas. We talked about how bad their pass has been. If Brandon Cooks is healthy, I'm fine with it because the target share has been great. So this is a good low 6K to 5K range.
Yeah, it is. And you skipped over Brandon Ayuk. You didn't even mention Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I don't have interest in them, but that's fine. If Samuel's out, I'll play Ayuk. We'll have to wait on the Samuel news. Debo's.
Yeah, we'll have to wait on the Samuel news and see what happens. But even when Debo Samuel was playing last week, Ayuk still did well.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of that was sort of again, they were in a shootout against. I guess it depends on what you think this game flow is going to be like, right? If you think it's going to go back and forth, that's fine. The game total was obviously much higher last week against the Chiefs. This one's only 42.5. So Ayuk might be a little bit contrarian there. So just don't mind it. You're right. The recent performances lends him a reason to be there.
I find that very funny about you. Like, you'll sit here and you'll quote target numbers from the last 2 weeks about a bunch of players, and then you'll completely ignore what other players have done over their last 2 games.
Well, game flow matters to me, too. Though.
Game flow definitely matters, and there are a lot of times where you're like, oh, this guy got all these targets, blah, blah, blah. Well, that was the game flow.
Right, but there are matchups versus... There are different circumstances when we tout target share. I feel like these were instances where he got 11 targets in those games. They were playing from behind the whole time against Atlanta. They were playing from behind the whole time against Kansas City. So historically speaking, this isn't a matchup where we would expect them to be playing from behind. They beat them 24-9 in that first game. He only had 4 targets in that one. They ran the ball a ton. So we'll see. Right. If you think this is going to be a competitive back and forth game, and if Debo's out, Ayuk is fine at 61. I won't sit there and debate you on the recent performances out of him. McLaurin just
DJ Moore got into the end zone last week. Are you ready to start investing in him?
So you want to talk target share? he had like 70% of the targets by PJ Walker or something like that. Like the bench only threw to DJ Moore when they were throwing the football. So he's not my favorite spot, but if that's the volume he's going to get, sure. I just don't know how long we can trust Walker to be again, was it a perfect storm situation last week where they were just kind of riding the high, or is DJ Moore going to be that guy? He got 10 of the 22 pass attempts that Walker threw last week. So
right. Well, I mean, and I think that's something that we need to point out as well to people, because we sit there and talk about target share, but people sitting there talking about target share for Drake London and for Kyle Pitts, and I'm like, fucking Mariota throws 10 times a game. Right. So of course the target share. PJ Walker threw 22 times. That's it, 22. Now, did 10 of those go to DJ Moore? Yes, because they don't have anybody else. Right. And so that's an eyeball thing. But guys with high target shares on offenses that don't really throw the ball too much, that's something that I think a lot of people overlook. I think that a lot of people quote target share numbers for a lot of players without putting it in the right context.
So I'm not going to say that I do have a sound clip that I'm waiting till the end of the year to kind of victory lap on, but there is a sound clip of me saying exactly what you just said on SiriusXM for why I had 0 Kyle Pitts shares. Because I didn't think Marcus Mariota was going to throw the football at all. And right. I said the exact thing you said. I'm like, everybody's talking about target share. He's going to have all the target share. I'm like, what good is 35% target share of 15 passes? I literally say that. Who cares? Who cares what 7 targets are, right? Like, it doesn't matter. So, I got that one in the vault. If it holds true through the rest of the season, that will be coming out come week 18 of like, yeah, man, all of you people out there who, not to go on a side tangent while we're doing this, but circumstances matter. Situations that people are in matter. You can't look at what Kyle Pitts did last year with Matt Ryan and you'd be like, oh my God, this is going to be the year for him. Really? Because they just got a quarterback that career high pass attempts in a single season was 400, right? Like Matt Ryan was throwing 600 times. The whole situation has changed. There's a lot of fantasy football takes out there that don't take actual real football into account. They care too much about what they think the perceived sabermetrics are of players. And
that's why I worry about a guy like DJ Moore. 40% target share last week, 36.8% the week before that. Yep. I mean, his target share looks fantastic. 31% this week, 20% this week. That's great. But, I mean, is that coming out to more than half a dozen targets?
Right. And the quarterback sucks. So
quarterback sucks.
That was again the tweet I sent out when they traded for Baker Mayfield. And I was like, DJ Moore, stock going up. I'm like, here's just a little quick note that Baker Mayfield had the 3rd highest bad throw percentage in the NFL last year. So, and hey, what do you know? DJ Moore was horrible, so was Baker Mayfield. Anyways.
We shouted you out on the Lightning Round podcast the other day.
Did you?
That I did with him. Coop and I were talking about, because obviously Kevin Tompkins is a huge DJ Moore stan.
Yeah.
And we started talking about Carolina, I think, and Coop mentioned you with Baker Mayfield and him sucking, and we talked about the whole target share thing as well. So
yep, beautiful. Love it.
Good
love it. Allen Robinson, Howard. For the bye week, 5 catches, touchdown, 63 yards. Signs of life, or how are we feeling about Mr. A-Rob here?
I'm pretty ambivalent about him. I mean, the 49ers, we'll see what happens with the health of their secondary, but from everything that I've heard, Charvarius Ward is fine, Jimmy Ward is fine, Hufanga, their strong safety, is fine. So all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more of a tenuous situation in that secondary. So I don't know if I can buy into Allen Robinson anymore. I just can't do it.
Yep, that's fine. Other guys in this low 5K range. After the game last week against Detroit, the Cowboys offensive coordinator, blanking on the name there momentarily, said they got to do better about job of getting Michael Gallup involved sooner. He only had 2 targets last week, got 0 fantasy points. We'll see if they actually do turn that around this week. He's a potential post-hype play here at 5K. Didn't move his price tag at all. Darnell Mooney, to me, opposite, is actually pretty interesting here. We talk all the time, Diggs gives up big plays, right? Mooney is a downfield guy. It only takes one play from Fields to Mooney for him to hit bingo at $4,800. So I think in some GPPs this week, you want to throw a dart throw on Darnell Mooney, I'm in.
I'm okay with that as well for the exact same reason. I actually talked about that the other day. Trevon Diggs gives up those big plays because he loves to jump the routes. Justin Fields definitely feeling himself a little bit right now. So, yeah, I dig that play. 4,700, dude. I can't get enough of Wan'Dale Robinson. I got to be honest. I think him and Slayton, I know that Seattle doesn't give up a lot of points to the wide receivers, but with Daniel Bellinger being out and not really a whole lot of confidence in their tight end situation, I think it's a lot of passes, short passes to Saquon Barkley, but I think those short, quick timing routes to Wan'Dale Robinson is really, I think that's going to be a bread and butter move this week.
Yeah, I tried to tell this to Coop last week in our podcast where he was down on Wan'Dale because he only played 23% of the snaps in his first game back. I'm like, yeah, man, they're going to ramp him up. They get him back in. They got his feet wet. Week 2, what did he play? 86% of the snaps last week. He's their wide receiver 1. They're gonna play him nonstop out there. And like you said, no Bellinger now. I'm with you there. $4,700. I'm more in on Wan'Dale than Slayton, but Slayton is certainly more of a downfield guy for them too. So if they do have some big plays, as long as he can actually hold on to the football, there's an opportunity for him to kind of have a long touchdown there as well. What are you feeling on these? We didn't talk about Pittman, but Pierce, Campbell, those guys all played like 100% of the offensive snaps last week. Ellinger, of course, is now the quarterback, though. So do you have any interest at all in this Indy receiving group? We know how bad Washington's secondary is.
Washington's secondary is bad. I just don't know what Ellinger is going to be like in his first game. I have some confidence in him because this Washington secondary is bad. And with the pass rush that Washington has, it could inspire Ellinger to do a little bit more running. The way I kind of looked at it was, and I've talked to a lot of people about this for season long as well, and like I'll still look to Michael Pittman. If Ellinger he's going to be the guy, he needs to have that rapport with Michael Pittman. He needs to have that rapport. So I think Pittman is fine. I think if you're going to try and see if Ellinger is the guy who you want moving forward as your quarterback, if you're Indianapolis, then obviously you're trying to build up a relationship with him and Alec Pierce.
Right.
Kind of puts Paris Campbell on the outside looking in for me. I mean, great, he vibed with Matt Ryan, and he's gotten into the end zone thanks to Matt Ryan, but this is a totally different story. I'll tell you what, one of the things that I've touted this for years, and it's amazing how many people continuously overlook it. When you have a change at quarterback, the youngster who takes over under center, when the shit comes down in a game, he starts to look for the guys he knows the best. And he hasn't had time. He's had this week, and only this week, to work with Pittman and Paris Campbell and even Alec Pierce to a certain extent.
Sure.
Mike Strawn, spelled Strachan, for like no money whatsoever. That's a guy who I'm actually kind of looking into as like a GPP dart throw.
Just saying.
I mean, I'm sure hoping that you say that you hate it.
I mean, he isn't anybody that has played, so like it would be something if he was to start cracking the lineup. He's played 9 total offensive snaps this year, so for him to
what are you talking about, dude? All right, so Strawn, 12% of the snaps in week 1, 70% of the snaps with Michael Pittman out in week 2. Pittman came back. He went back to 8%, 14% in week 4, 9% in week 5, 23% in week 6, and then back down to 3% in week 8.
Well, Football Reference is just like not registering numbers for him then. I guess that's where the problem lies. So
yeah. So
okay.
I'm looking at snap counts right now from our friends over at Football Guys.
Sure.
It's a very trustworthy source. I know Drew Davenport very well, so I am good with Football Guys here.
Yeah, that's fine. Works for me.
So listen, he's only played 89 snaps all year to 438 for Pittman and 433 for Campbell, 270 for Pierce. If you're going to spread the field at all and you want to get your rookie quarterback comfortable, when he's running around and he's scrambling and he's looking downfield, he's looking for the guy who he knows where he's going. He knows where Strawn is going.
Right.
Just something like that, to me, that's a deep GPP play.
Sure. Listen, I trust you on it. We do talk a lot about where these guys go and who they're comfortable with. So no arguments here. I'll throw dart throws at the Patriots guys. Again, Mac Jones is going to be the quarterback. They've already announced that today. Devontae Parker has seen a decent target share of late. I know you hate Devontae Parker, but again, the numbers for him have actually been pretty decent lately with the 11 targets the last 2 weeks.
But John, Tyquan Thornton, everybody loves Tyquan Thornton.
Yeah, I mean, Thornton's a deep guy, though, right? You're going to get those consistent looks, I think, from Parker. Parker's been getting downfield throws, too. Jacoby Myers a little expensive, but he's the number one. You can go Thornton. He had 1 catch. He had 5 targets last week. He's fast. He's going to go downfield. They want these guys taking shots downfield, so I don't hate it, but it's got to be a 1 of 20 lineup and not a 1 of 3 or 1 of 1 for me. So I got nobody else, though. Do you have any other receivers you're interested in?
Well, we talked a little Philip Dorsett. I definitely think that he is somebody you can pay down for. Marquise Goodwin. If Tyler Lockett plays, he's going to command the majority of attention downfield. So I think that that's an intriguing.
I wish he was cheaper, though. That's my problem.
He's pretty cheap on FanDuel. I don't know what he is on.
He's 44 on DraftKings.
He's 44 on DraftKings.
Yeah.
He's 56 on FanDuel.
Yeah. So I wish he was a little bit cheaper. Obviously, he was 3,400 last week. So he's 44 this week. But we talked about no Corey Davis. If Elijah Moore does play, whatever status he has on that team. But Braxton Berrios is 3,700.
Yep. Braxton Berrios, he's 5,200 on FanDuel.
I think Berrios gets on the field anyways with Corey Davis out, just given the way the snap share that those guys have had. So could be a sneaky play there for Berrios at $3,700.
What about Terrace Marshall Jr.? Does he intrigue you in any way at all?
I don't know. I don't really want to put too much investment into this Panthers offense, even though they won. Like, give me the running back, that's fine. If you want to throw DJ Moore out there, okay. But, Laviska Shenault, Terrace Marshall, I don't want
Terrace Marshall played 86% of the snaps last week, John.
Yeah, I know. But again, he only threw 22 times, and half of those went to DJ Moore.
Right. So?
No, I'm good. If you want to play, go ahead. I'm not. There's no upside for that. If Waddle sits, Cedric Wilson's at 3,300. Could be an interesting little fill-in.
If Tyreek Hill sits, not Tyreek, if Tyler Lockett sits, D. Eskridge.
Sure. Is Lockett questionable?
I know he's been dealing with a banged up little injury.
He doesn't have any tag on him. That's why I wasn't sure. Dorsett will be very popular, though. Again, we talked about he played 56% of the offensive snaps last week. He caught a touchdown pass. He's 3,200. So he'll probably be in a lot of lineups just because you're going to need to find some value here. All right, let's go to tight end. Kittle's at the top against the Rams.
Let's not.
Yeah, Kittle's at the top. Waller, Ertz, Goddard, Hawkinson, Higbee. Not a lot of great things. Higbee did have that target share going for him for a little bit, but I guess talking with Coop last week, they had him actually block a lot more, or 2 weeks ago rather. So maybe the bye week they'll change some of that. Goddard is fine, the target share wise. Ertz is fine, but I don't know. I'm not loving the top of these guys here.
No, I did hear a rumor about the Rams kicking the tires on your boy, Isaiah Wynn.
The Patriots had him as an inactive last week, so his time in New England is likely done. What a waste of a first-round pick. So,
right, well, Rams could end up grabbing him there. As far as the tight end position goes, listen, Kittle is the top guy. I don't even know if you need to do that. Zach Ertz, maybe against Minnesota is possible. You said Higbee. Goddard is always going to be a guy in play. Like, for me, the tight end position right now, I like Gesicki.
Sure.
I like his involvement the last 2 weeks.
They're trying to trade him. So.
They're featuring him, right? So feature him.
Yep.
So he's there. Irv Smith. I think this is a week where you can just kind of, in all honesty, I feel like you can throw away the tight end position.
Would you play a Tanner Hudson? I think it is. The Giants tight end here.
I don't really love him, but I mean, is he any different from using Will Dissly or Jelani Woods or Cole Kmet?
Probably not. Who was it? If Schultz doesn't play this week, Coop tossed out Jake Ferguson on the podcast this week.
Yep. Jake Ferguson's definitely somebody to look at, even though Peyton Hendershot was the guy who scored.
Yeah. Ferguson scored in week 6. He had 6 targets there. So pick one, I guess. Ferguson, they drafted in the 4th round this year. So potentially a guy there if he's good to. But yeah, there's really not here. I wish Logan Thomas would just get healthy so I could just play Logan Thomas. Trotman's out. So if Juwan Johnson's hamstring's healthy enough for him on Sunday, $3,200. You run back to that. I think it's probably pretty safe.
It's all pretty gross, dude.
Yeah, it's the tight end position. So
it is the tight end position. It's pretty damn gross.
It is. I agree with you. All right, let's go to defense.
Let's go to defense. The Cowboys against the Bears is like a no-brainer. Pricey as fuck, though. Eagles against Pittsburgh. Pricey as fuck, but still rock solid option, no doubt. I think if you're looking for some interesting pay down possibilities, I like the Colts against Washington. I think that's something that you can look at. I actually like the Texans against Tennessee, especially if Tannehill's going to be banged up.
Yeah, so the Colts are actually expensive on DraftKings. I know you're looking at FanDuel, right? So
Oh yeah, I am looking at FanDuel.
yeah, Colts are the 4th highest priced defense.
Wow.
Spend down, I mean, opposite of that, we don't know what Sam Ellinger is going to look like. The Commanders are 26. You know, if they choose to run the football a lot, maybe that doesn't put up many points on there. Yeah, Texans are cheap. They're $2,600 as well. Giants are $2,800. Let's see. The 49ers I actually like at $3,100. We talked about this before. The 49ers just shut down this Rams team. I know they're on the road this week and the Rams are coming off a bye, so maybe they'll be a little bit more prepared. $3,100 for the 49ers defense, I think, is not terrible.
I'm cool with that. I'm definitely cool with that. Defense is weird this year. Like, we're either paying all the way down or we're paying all the way up. There's very little in between.
All right, let's build our lineup.
Oh, I already got 2 of the most disgusting lineups possible built. 1 on each site.
All right, well, give me your DraftKings lineup.
Let's go with a min-price Sam Ellinger.
Oh, gee. You're not gonna give anybody. You're not gonna give one anybody's actually gonna use here, Howard.
What are you talking about? Why wouldn't you want to use that?
There's zero reason to use Sam Ellinger. He's just $4,000. Sam Ellinger.
Why is there zero reason? What does he have to do to pay off a $4,000 price tag?
Enough that can still hurt you, though. I mean, he does. What's his upside? I don't know. We'll see
What's
the
his
rest of the
upside
line.
is that he rushes for 30 yards and a touchdown. He passes for 178 and a touchdown, and he has an interception.
I guess. He's 4K. He's probably usable. Go ahead. What's the running backs?
Oh, okay. Thanks.
I don't know.
Derrick Henry and Tony Pollard.
Okay.
Whatchamacallit? Wait a second. Where was I on that? Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
Chris Olave. Michael Strawn. Jake Ferguson is my tight end. DeAndre Hopkins in the flex. And the Eagles defense.
Hopkins and the Eagles.
So basically, I'm throwing away QB, which you never should do. You definitely shouldn't do it. I'm throwing away QB. I'm using a min-price wide receiver, and I'm throwing away the tight end as well. And for that, I get Henry.
Maybe a wide receiver 3.
What's that?
And maybe your wide receiver 3.
That's what I said. I'm throwing that away. I'm throwing away quarterback, wide receiver 3, and the tight end here.
Okay.
Even though Michael Strawn is going to catch a touchdown, and I'm going to laugh my ass off, and I'm going to tag you in every fuck
I'll say this. You better bet the anytime touchdown prop for him then.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Might as well,
yeah.
Right? Like, why not? If you're
But you use that nonsense and you get Henry and Pollard and Tyreek and Olave and Hopkins and the Eagles D.
Sure.
I did it over on FanDuel too. Ellinger,
Yeah.
Henry, Pollard, Tyreek. Went down to Philip Dorsett with Mike Strawn as the wide receivers.
All right.
Kyle Pitts as the tight end. Saquon Barkley is my flex. And the Colts D.
It works. It works. Let's see. Cowboys. I'll do the Eagles. I got one tight end was flex 49. Let's see.
Carry the 4.
Here we go.
7
yeah, I got it.
times.
All right. So I have
live podcast, and you're sitting there like.
No, I had it out already, but I erased it to do yours. So Henry, Pollard, Waddle, Hopkins, Dorsett, Juwan Johnson, Darnell Mooney, and the Eagles defense.
Yeah. Oh, I like that a lot.
Yep. Got Hopkins, got Waddle, got Pollard, got Henry, Tua, Darnell Mooney, Eagles defense, Juwan Johnson. Didn't have to play Ellinger or something called Michael Strock to do it. So we're there. That's my lineup. Howard's got his. Any final thoughts for the people at home, Howard?
No, I don't really have any final thoughts. We're going to be covering a lot of this on the Fantasy Alarm Show. So if you have the SXM app, you can go and listen to Friday's show because I'll be going through a bunch of that. Playbook on Saturday morning, dartboard Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday morning you can listen to me and Fensty on Sirius XM from 7 to 9 a.m. And then I'll be building some lineups. And let this just be a word to everybody out there. Don't ask me questions on Sunday morning. I'm just not going to do it. I can't kill myself on Sunday. I'm getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to do a 4 a.m. fucking show. So stop peppering me with questions. Get your question. If you have a question that you want answered by me, put it in the Discord or send it to me on Twitter. But if it has to be in by midnight Eastern time on Saturday night.
Yep. If you want your questions answered live, myself and James Grande will be on the live stream this Sunday from 9 to 11. So listen to Howard and Fensty 7 to 9. turn over to the Discord, get into our YouTube channel, watch Grande and myself break down the slate as well, get some of your start sit questions answered over there. So we got a full day's worth of coverage for Sunday. The example lineups will be out on Sunday. Saturday we'll have the playbook and the dartboard out for everybody as well. So check all the content out, get in Discord. Howard and I will catch you guys next week.